Welcome back to the brutal reality of cash flow. Put those macroeconomics textbooks back on the shelf, because today we are talking about dry supply and demand curves, or beautiful mathematical models that are dead wrong. We are talking about Richard Thaler, the titan who won the 2017 Nobel Prize in economics. The only guy with the guts to walk into a room full of Harvard PhDs and tell them straight to their faces, "You guys are delusional."
Let's start with an image that movie buffs will definitely remember. The movie The Big Short. You remember the scene with Selena Gomez at the blackjack table in Las Vegas? Sitting right next to her is an older guy of glasses, looking mild-mannered but with eyes like a hawk. That is Richard Thaler. In that fleeting Hollywood moment, Thaler explained a concept that drove the financial world insane: the hot hand fallacy.
He explained that when a gambler is on a winning streak, the crowd around him believes hook, line, and sinker that his luck will never run out. They bet on him believing the streak is a rule, not randomness. The result? The house always wins. The crowd loses their shirts. That is exactly what happened to the US housing market before 2008. Everyone believed housing prices could only go up. Banks like Lehman Brothers and Bear Stearns bet the farm on that naive belief, eventually dragging the entire global economy into the abyss. Thaler's presence in that movie wasn't an accident. It was a slap in the face to classical economic theory. For centuries, from Adam Smith to the era of Milton Friedman, economics was built on a fantasy foundation, Homo economicus. According to this theory, you, me, and your neighbor are all supercomputers, perfectly rational. Before buying an iPhone 15 Pro Max, theory suggests you've analyzed opportunity costs, calculated depreciation, compared marginal utility against investing that cash in an S&P 500 index fund, and made the optimal decision for your net worth. Sounds ridiculous, right? Because the truth is, you bought that iPhone just because your best friend posted a story flexing it, or because Tim Cook said the titanium frame was cool. You swipe a credit card with 20% interest while letting cash rot in a savings account earning pennies. You're scared to fly because of plane crashes, but will happily text while driving 70 miles per hour down the highway. Richard Thaler saw this absurdity. He realized that humans are not Homo economicus. We are Homer Simpson. We are lazy, emotional, easily manipulated. Thaler's opening punch to the academic world was his assertion, the market is not as efficient as we think. If the market were truly efficient and humans were rational, the 2000 dot-com bubble would never have happened. People wouldn't have valued companies with zero revenue like Pets.com at billions of dollars just because they had .com in their name. If humans were rational, Apple stock wouldn't tank based on a baseless rumor, only to bounce back when nothing fundamental changed. The 2017 Nobel Prize wasn't just an award for an individual, it was the world admitting that the old model is dead. It was a warning that if we continue to run central banks, multinational corporations, and personal wallets based on the assumption that people always act rationally, we're going to face disasters bigger than 2008.
Thaler injected psychology into economics, creating behavioral economics. He pointed out that humanity, with all its impulsiveness, envy, and short-termism, is what actually drives the world's money, not the cold Excel spreadsheets on Wall Street. But how does this theory work in the real world? Why does losing $100 hurt twice as much as finding $100 feels good? Why are companies like Netflix and Spotify getting rich off your laziness? And how can a gentle nudge change the destiny of an entire nation? I'm going to show you exactly how your brain is lying to you right now.
Richard Thaler didn't just stand outside criticizing. He took the engine apart to show us the rusty gears. The two core concepts Thaler used to smash the Homo economicus illusion are mental accounting and the endowment effect. Sound academic? Don't worry, I'll explain it in the language of a used car dealer on Craigslist and a degenerate gambler in Vegas. Mental accounting, the deception of invisible jars. According to standard economic logic, money is money. $1 from your salary, $1 from the lottery, or $1 found on the street all have equal value and are fungible. But Thaler says, wrong. In your head, there are separate jars, accounts. You have a jar for rent, a jar for savings, and a jar for free money. Look at the IRS, Internal Revenue Service and tax season. This is the classic example. When you get that $2,000 tax refund check, your brain immediately labels it as a bonus or free money. What do? You run straight to Best Buy for a 65-inch flat screen or book a trip to Cancun. You blow it. But what's the brutal reality? That is your money. That is the salary you sweated for, but you let the government hold it interest-free for a whole year. If your boss added $2,000 to your salary over the year, about $160 a month, you would use it to pay the electric bill or pay down credit card debt. But because it comes as a lump sum refund, your brain shifts it to the play money account instead of the survival account. A more brutal example, gambling in Las Vegas. Imagine walking into Caesar's Palace with $500. You get lucky and win up to $1,000. Now you view the original $500 as your money and the $500 in winnings as house money. You start betting that $500 on incredibly risky hands you'd never normally play. When you lose it all, you shrug. Broke even. Didn't lose anything. Richard Thaler is laughing at you. You just lost $500 of real money. The moment you won it, that money was your asset. But because of mental accounting, you devalued it. Casinos and even the crypto market during the peak of Bitcoin or Luna thrive on this mental trap. 2. The endowment effect. Why your junk is treasure. Let's talk real estate, the bittersweet agony of the American dream. Economic theory says the value of an item is decided by the market, where supply meets demand. But Thaler found a massive glitch. We value things we already own much higher than their actual worth, simply because they are ours. This is the endowment effect. Look at the US housing market post-2008 or even now with high Fed rates. You have millions of homeowners sitting on aging houses. They list them for $500,000, a buyer comes in, sees the leaking roof and the kitchen from the Nixon administration and offers $400,000, the fair market price.
What does the homeowner do? They get offended. They refuse to sell. They would rather let the house sit empty, pay property taxes, and cover maintenance costs than accept losing that imaginary $100,000. To them, the house holds memories and ego. To the buyer, it's just a pile of bricks. Thaler proved this with the famous mug experiment. He gave free mugs to half a Cornell class and asked them to sell to the other half. The mug owners demanded an average of $5.25. The buyers were only willing to pay $2.25 to $2.75. That gap is human irrationality. Applied to modern business, look at Amazon Prime and Costco. Why are you blindly loyal to Amazon Prime? Because you paid the membership fee, sunk cost. Once you drop that $139 a year, your brain switches modes. I have to buy a ton of stuff to make back the fee, so you buy useless junk from paper clips to dog costumes, just because of free shipping. Amazon isn't selling goods. They are selling a membership to trigger your mental accounting. They shift shipping costs from the pain of paying to an invisible fixed cost paid long ago, and so you spend without breaks. Richard Thaler showed us, we don't optimize utility, we just try to optimize feelings. We are loss averse. The pain of losing $100 is twice as intense as the joy of gaining $100. Because of this faulty engine in the individual brain, when scaled up to a national level, it creates policy disasters and economic collapses that no computer model can predict. So what happens when these Homer Simpsons aren't just buying TVs, but managing national pension funds or deciding global energy policy? That's when the system starts shaking violently. If you think overpaying for a used car is bad, wait until I show you how governments and multinational corporations burn cash. Why? Because the people in charge are just humans, and they are stuck in the exact same psychological traps as you, but on a billion-dollar scale. Richard Thaler calls this the power of the default option and inertia. Look at the big picture. The world isn't collapsing due to a lack of resources, it's collapsing because of terrible designs based on human laziness. This is the classic example Thaler and his colleague Kaz Sunstein used to embarrass European policymakers. Compared to neighboring countries with similar cultures, Germany and Austria. What do you think their organ donation rates are? Germany, about 12%. Austria, nearly 99%. Why? Do Austrians have higher morals? Are Germans heartless? Not at all. The truth is painfully mundane. It's the form. In Germany, the default is you do not donate. You have to check a box saying, I want to donate. In Austria, the default is you will donate. You have to check a box saying, I do not want to donate. Humans are incredibly lazy. We hate making decisions or taking action, even just checking a box. So we go with the default. In Germany, laziness kills donation rates. In Austria, laziness saves thousands of lives. This is a massive system glitch. Governments wasted decades on expensive public education campaigns when they could have simply changed the text on a piece of paper. Let's go back to the US. For decades, the retirement system was voluntary.
You got a job, got paid, and the company said, hey, fill out this form to put 5% of your check into a 401k, and we'll match it. That is free money. But guess what? Millions of Americans, especially low-income workers, did nothing. They didn't join. Why? The forms were complex. They feared an immediate pay cut, and they suffered from procrastination. The result? A generation facing a broke old age. Richard Thaler stepped in and changed the game with the Save More Tomorrow program. He convinced companies and Congress to change the rules. 1, automatic enrollment. The default is you are in. If you don't want to save, you have to file paperwork to opt out. 2, pre-commitment. You don't save today, you commit that when you get a raise in the future, a portion of that raise goes to savings. This move is diabolical and genius. It tricks the fear of loss, since you haven't seen the raise money yet, you don't miss it, and satisfies procrastination. Let's deal with it tomorrow. The result? Savings rates skyrocketed from 3.5% to 13.6%. Thaler saved the US from a Social Security disaster just by understanding behavioral psychology.
If you think only individuals are stupid, look at the British and French governments with the Concorde supersonic jet project. By the 1970s, it was clear the project was economically inviable. Operating costs were too high, noise was too loud, and passengers were too few. Any sane CFO would say, cut losses. But the governments didn't. They had poured too much money and too much national pride into it. They continued throwing taxpayer money into this money pit for 30 years just to maintain the illusion. In economics, this is called the Concorde fallacy. Where else do we see this? The Vietnam War. The Pentagon kept escalating not because they believed in victory, but because they didn't want to admit the fallen soldiers died in vain. Silicon Valley startups. Look at WeWork or Mark Zuckerberg's metaverse. Once billions are invested, it's hard for a CEO to stand up and say, I was wrong, let's stop. Instead, they double down, hoping against hope to break even. The global glitch is this. Institutions are designed for rational people, but they are run by emotional humans terrified of failure. The world doesn't run on straight lines on a chart, it runs on the crooked curves of human psychology. And if you don't spot the glitch, you are the next victim. So standing in a world full of psychological traps and giants trying to nudge you into debt, what do?
You've swallowed the red pill like Neo in the Matrix. You've seen the source code of reality. The financial world isn't built on dry numbers, but on your own psychological blind spots. Corporations like Apple, casinos in Vegas, and stockbrokers are playing your brain like a fiddle. So what's the plan? Keep being a naive Homer Simpson or become the architect of your own life. Richard Thaler doesn't leave us hopeless. He gives us the tools to fight back. Here is how you apply a Nobel Prize in economics to your empty wallet right now. First, break the curse of mental accounting with one ruthless rule. Money is fungible. Stop treating tax refunds, year-end bonuses, or stock winnings as house money.
Next time you want to use a $500 bonus to buy a handbag or a pair of Jordans you don't need, ask yourself this. If I was walking down the street and dropped $500 cash from my wallet, would I run home, take $500 out of my savings, and go buy those shoes? If the answer is no, then put the credit card away. Don't let the bonus label fool you. Throw it into an investment account or pay off debt immediately. Be as cold as a gangster with your finances. Money is money, period. Next, accept the truth that you are lazy and lack willpower. Don't be sad, we all are. Don't try to fight instinct. Redesign your choice architecture to make laziness work for you. This is the power of the nudge.
If you want to save money, never trust the mantra, I'll save whatever's left at the end of the month. There will be nothing left. Set up an auto transfer on payday. Make saving the default option. Make spending harder than saving. Delete your saved credit card info from your browser so every time you want to buy junk on Amazon, you have to physically haul yourself up to get your wallet and type in the numbers. Laziness will save your wallet. Tie yourself to the mast like Odysseus to ignore the siren songs of marketing.
Finally, and most importantly, learn to be a ruthless quitter to escape the sunk cost fallacy. In life, you will buy garbage stocks, you will start terrible business projects, and you will enter toxic relationships. The biggest mistake isn't starting them, it's holding on to them just because you've already invested too much. Remember the Concorde. The money you lost is dead money. The time you spent is gone. You cannot get it back by throwing good money and time into a black hole.
If you are down 50% on a trash stock and the company has no future, sell it. Don't wait to break even. Accept the pain of loss right now to free up capital for a better opportunity. A great investor isn't someone who is always right, but someone who knows how to cut losses the fastest when they are wrong.
Treat cutting losses like taking out the trash. It stinks for a second, but then it's clean and ready for something new.
Richard Thaler's behavioral economics doesn't teach you how to become a billionaire overnight. It teaches you how not to be the fool getting fleeced every day. It reminds you that the biggest enemy of wealth isn't inflation, it isn't the Fed, it's the guy in the mirror staring back at you every morning. The world is full of traps designed to exploit your primal instincts, but now you have the map. You know the rules. Don't let your brain trick your wallet anymore. Stay sharp, stay pragmatic, and remember, in the casino of life, if you don't spot the sucker is you.